And then I started, like separating from some of the group I was with as I started reading more because I knew they wouldn't
Talk
come.
about that.
Yeah, I knew they wouldn't come. I used to tell, I remember, we were sitting at this little restaurant that we would go
Mm,
to after work and hang out. And I used to be the leader of the pack. But when I started reading, I would sit there and talk to them about, what's your goals? What's your dreams? And they looking at me like, man, you killing my high here. You need to shut up
yep.
because my goal
Yep.
and dream right now is that female over at the bar. That's my goal and dream. I'm like,
That part.
yes. So I wind up cutting away. It was a good thing though because they didn't really want to be a part of that, and I didn't want to be a part of this
Hmm.
anymore. I was a part of that for a long time. But as I started reading and I started thinking, I'm like, man, some of these books been out for 20 years. I never even heard of them, and people are using that information against me.
Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. How you doing? Welcome back to this week's edition of the Getting the Win Show. I am your host, Melissa T, the procrastination bully. Today, we'll be interviewing Tony Fleming, who is the host of his own show. His podcast is called the Elite Psyche 100 Mental Toughness Pod. You'll find it on YouTube at Elite Psyche 100. I'll make sure you get all that information at the end of the episode. But yeah, we get into mental toughness. Tony is someone who has decades of experience in the network marketing space, and mental toughness and personal development was his big. Those were his biggest takeaways from that industry, and what kept him consistent in that industry. So we're here to talk about mental toughness, the things he learned from network marketing, and what he's got going on going forward. And we nerd out on some book talk today. So check out the episode. Hope it blesses you. Enjoy. As promised, we've got the one and only Tony Fleming in the house. Thank you so much, Tony, for coming on the show. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Can't wait to get started.
Yes. So, first of all, shout out to Gail Andrews, our mutual friend who introduced us.
Right.
If you guys remember the episode with Gail, we had the privilege of having her on the show, and we were able to talk with her about, her tactics for setting goals and things like that. And we were talking about her Dreams and Visions Masterclass. Tony is somebody that's similar. He's very big on mental toughness. Like if each of us has a brand that is summarized in a word or a phrase, mine is beating procrastination. His is mental toughness. He's got the Elite Psyche 100, the Mental Toughness Pod. You can subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell, y'all. Don't just hit
Right.
subscribe. Do both.
There you go. And comment.
And comment, right? Say something. Say something.
Yes, yes.
So talk about mental toughness, Tony, and what made you decide to hone in on that? Like, why was that the cause that you wanted to espouse?
Uh, I remember this was in the early '90s, late '90s. I was
Hmm.
reading I don't know if you remember this, but the network marketing, they had
Hmm.
this little magazine. It was called, God, I can't think of the name. It was in all bookstores, Liberty Square magazine that
Hmm.
came out every month. And I kept reading, this one guy, uh, his articles and stories that he wrote in that magazine. And they were so impressive to me. I mean, I didn't know he even was a speaker. I just thought he was a writer. And so
Hmm.
every time the magazine came out, I looked for him. His name is Steve Siebel. And
Okay.
so one day I said, let me look this guy up. And so when I looked him up, Steve Siebel he's a speaker. He actually has um, well, he says it. I didn't Google to see, but the number one speaker training uh, class, which is through, it's called uh, Bill Gold. Bill Gold was
Okay.
the guy who set it up, and so he does the certificates for that. And
Hmm.
so I started following him, and I started looking at some of his books that he had. And one time I saw in Atlanta that he was going to be speaking somewhere. So I
Oh,
took
nice.
myself and about three or four people. We actually went to the seminar, and I met him. And Uh, he is a mental toughness guru. He is the expert that they call like on some of the on CNN or Fox or whatever when they want to talk about that. He's the guy, and so I started following him, and actually went and got the certificate for speaking. He has a mansion, like an old, almost like a plantation home that he bought right outside of Gwinnett, and in the
Okay.
back of his house, he has a training facility, and that's where you
Wow.
go to get the certificates. It was about 20 of us in that class. It was 7 days. So, but I got the certificate on speaking. But I fell in love with the mental toughness thing because I realized that over the years, the people that I've dealt with that come and go, uh, the most of the people who win had this mental toughness. That means they went through all
Mm,
these challenges and came out. Because you have to have that. You have to be mentally strong to deal with the things that are thrown at you as you start advancing in life. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're not, I call it when you're not outside of the box, because most people are in this box of go to
right.
school, get a good education, go get a good job, save your money, penny pinch. If you want a part-time job, you need to go get with the big three: Delta, UPS, or FedEx. Get the big three.
Mm,
You got that. That's the box. So when you step outside the box, most of the people that I was dealing with were outside the box. That's when they
okay.
start getting attacked. That's when you got to have that mental toughness, because the people in the box are going to throw rocks at you because they hadn't
True.
seen, somebody in the box is not talking about having your business on speaking. And the box is not talking about all these other things. So I started looking at that and I realized that, man, mental toughness was a key. So that's how I kind of, got into it from Steve Siebel. And I guess, guys, y'all need to check him out. He has two books out. One of them is called 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, and the other one is
Oh,
called How Rich People Think. Both of those are powerful, and they're like,
okay.
yeah, each page
I've
is a
heard of the
chapter.
latter.
Yeah,
I've heard of the latter.
each page is a chapter. So you can open the book and go
Wow.
to page 80, read that chapter, and come back to 3, read that chapter. It's really cool, those books. So that's how I got into it, the mental toughness thing.
Awesome. And I know in our brief conversation earlier this week, you talked about the fact that you were involved in network marketing, but
Hmm.
kind of dig into that. Let us know
Okay.
like what your experience was in network marketing, like what
Okay.
company were you selling for?
Right,
How,
right,
like, did
right,
you
right.
build a team? How'd that go?
Well, I started in network marketing, man, in what they call it back in the olden days, as kids says in the 1900s. So
Right. Can you imagine?
yeah, in the 19. Oh, you were doing something in the 1900s? Like, yeah. So I think about 1997 was the time I
Mhm.
had worked in corporate America for the Atlanta Journal as account executive. Sold ads
Okay.
for the paper. Paper was big then. 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
About 4 years. Then I worked for AT&T about 5 years. I was an account executive at AT&T. And T. And what happened to me was I met a lady in the mall. I was in Montgomery, Alabama, and she was
Hmm.
talking to a guy about taxes. And she was telling him that he needed to have a home-based business. At that time, I was making good money
Nice.
with AT&T, and she said you could save on your taxes. Now, I really was ear
Hmm.
hustling. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to
Hmm.
the other guy. So when she walked off, I kind of ran behind her and said, what did you mean by that? And then she told me having a home-based business. So at that time, it's funny. It was a lady calling me every week. That time you had the answer machine where you can, you come in and hear the messages. And so she kept inviting me to a meeting, and I kept deleting it. I kept deleting it. Like, I don't go to no meeting. And then she called me one time. I picked up. I said, is your thing you talking about a home based business? She said, yeah. I said, I'll be there. Because all I wanted to do was get a business to save on taxes, because the
That
lady had
part.
told me how you do that. So I went to the meeting, wound up joining. Funny part about that meeting though, the lady had called me for about 2 months, and so when I got ready to join, uh, she said you can't do it. I said why? She said, well, I'm not in. I said, how you not in? You've been calling me for 2 months. She said, well, I was waiting on somebody, but I don't have the money tonight.
Uh
So
oh.
I had driven like 40 miles. I driven from no, it was 70 miles. Driven from Montgomery, Alabama to Birmingham just to go to meet. So I wound up paying to get her in so she can get me in. So I wasn't gonna go back without a business.
Right.
So I wound up, having the business, and I was, saving on my taxes. And then I started looking at the industry that I
Mm-hmm.
had kind of been denying. I was kind of like Saul, crucifying the Christians before he turned to Paul. That's how I was.
Mm-hmm.
I was crucifying the network marketing industry. And then when I really looked at it, because I was involved in it, and then I realized this was something I wanted to do, because I used to tell my boss at AT&T that, I'm helping all the salespeople. Y'all ought to cut me in and let me get a piece of that too. You know what I'm saying? So
That part.
when I saw the industry that says you can, you get paid on levels, you can help other people that help other people, man, that was it for me. And probably about 6-7 months after, signing up as just a rep, I jumped into the industry. And if you want to think about some of the companies that I was with, initially I started off with, and that company was Melaleuca, because
Okay. Yeah. We're familiar. Mm-hmm.
I use the products. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would say my two longest stints in the industry was with Tahitian Oni for about 7 or 8 years, and then I was with a company called Zija for about 5 years. Now, since then, I've done other companies, travel and other companies, but those are the two that I focused more in on, that I made the most money in, those two companies. But I believe in the network marketing industry. But let me say this too. You know
Mm-hmm.
how people say they're a business. I'm not a businessman. I'm not a business person. What kept me in the industry for the longest was the mindset, the personal development, the mental toughness that came about. I'm more
Mm-hmm.
of a teacher. See, I want to make
Okay.
sure you get it. I'm talking to people every day about this thing. I want them to change their thought process. I want them to get
Yep.
mentally tough. And that's what kept me going and having success. It wasn't that, I was a super business guy and I really wanted to go, make all this money. I mean, the money was great. It still is great. But if it wasn't for the personal development and the
Mm-hmm.
mental toughness and all that stuff, I don't think I would have stayed around that long. I don't know what industry is really teaching that but network marketing. I don't know if you know somebody else, another industry that's teaching that kind of personal development and mindset and
I
all that.
mean, it's the broader personal development industry. And what I'm starting to realize myself, because in 2014 I started following Les Brown, and that was where he started. Like,
Right. Oh
he
yeah.
was in network marketing
Right.
and began teaching and coaching over there, because
Yeah.
he saw that people were struggling in sales, and he
Mm-hmm.
developed one of his first teaching programs called Focus on the Seller.
Right.
So I think personal development was actually born out of network marketing, because one of
Mm-hmm.
the like godfathers of the industry, Jim Rohn, same thing. Like, he started his own network marketing company. I think
Yep.
his was called Life or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
Or
Back in the day.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, network marketing, I think, is like the branches on the personal development tree. Like, they come from network marketing, because you
Right.
have to have the mindset in order to last, because it's
What's
difficult.
crazy? Yeah, it is very difficult. And if it wasn't for that part of it, I don't
Hmm.
think most people you give the average person a chance to win by getting into. I remember listening to Net Lesson in the early '90s with the cassette tape, and
Hmm.
my guy was Earl Nightingale. I kept Earl
And that's
Nightingale
who
in my
Les used
car.
to listen to.
Oh God, I kept Earl, and what's funny is that I found Earl Nightingale through my supervisor at AT&T. I was sitting in his office waiting on him, and he had this
Hmm.
tape playing, and the guy was talking. I was like, who was that? Because it was making a lot
Hmm.
of sense. And so after
Hmm.
our meeting, I asked my supervisor, man, can I? He said, no, you can't borrow. I said, come on. So I talked to him for about 40 minutes to borrow the tape series. I took it home. This is funny. And you can't burn a CD. I mean, like a CD. So I took it home and I bought some Memorex tapes. And I had this
Yes.
tape player, with two on each side. And I
Yep.
sat up all night recording it, because you had to listen to the whole thing to record it.
The
You couldn't
whole thing.
fast forward. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And so I went through that whole tape series, and I had those Memorex tapes. After I gave it back in my car, and I took Tupac out, and all I did was listen to Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale. I would pull one out, throw it in the back seat, put another one in. That was my
Yep.
thing, and that was before network marketing. That had me successful at AT&T. Was I was riding around. I had a Mazda 626. I remember that, and
Wow.
I wore those
Throwback.
tapes out. Yeah, I wore those tapes out in that car, man. That was Earl Nightingale. And the funny thing, I got a chance to visit the Nightingale and Conant office.
Oh,
I was in Chicago
nice.
one time, and I saw that they were in Niles, Illinois. And so I asked my
Okay.
partner, I said, how far is that? He said, about 45 minutes. I said, we got to go. We drove over there, went through the warehouse. I mean, that thing was huge.
Huge.
First of all, I was buying all the stuff anyway online, the CDs and the DVDs, but it was just impressive to go in there and see what they did. You know, Earl he's the guy who made, I don't know if he started it, but he made motivational speaking and training popular. He's the guy, kind of
Hmm.
like, Xerox didn't start the copy machine. It was copy machines before Xerox. But
Yeah,
Xerox
they made
made
it
it.
mainstream.
Right. That's what Earl Nightingale did. He made it
Hmm.
big. And then, another guy followed was late great Bob Proctor, who followed
Hmm. I
Earl
followed him
Nightingale.
for a while too.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So with that experience, like talk a little bit more about what you currently do. Are you still? It sounds like you're still in network marketing, but talk a little
Well,
bit more about what you do now in terms of teaching and that sort
man,
of
I'm gonna
thing.
tell you something. My life is like in the last 3 years, 4 years has been crazy. Um, I kind of been out the industry for the last 2.5 years. I had a foot surgery. I had two foot surgeries that kind of put me down mentally. Now I'm always talking mental toughness. That thing got to me. It was
Hmm.
mentally because they at one point they was talking about getting the foot. I'm like, that was during the time that Deion Sanders had lost those toes and all that. And
Yeah.
yeah, they was talking to me about that, So, but
Hmm.
wind up, nothing happened. But it took me eight
Praise
months to
God.
heal. I had a boot on the whole time, and mentally I was out of it. So, and I thought about this podcast starting it then, but I didn't. I don't know what I could have set up and started then, but I didn't. I was
Hmm.
kind of crying a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it's something
Keep it
like that,
real.
but yeah, yeah. So, but I decided to start a podcast um, 12 months ago, like to the day. Today is my anniversary on the Elite Psyche Mental Toughness pod.
Congrats.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of just grabbed the mic, turned the laptop on, and like tonight, I think I'm gonna go live around 7 with my first guest that I ever interviewed, which was a guy named Sam Shade. I don't know if you're a sports guy, you might know Shade. Shade won a national championship at Bama in the '90s when they beat the Hurricanes. He also
Nice.
played. Yeah, he went to the NFL, played like 7, 8 years. Now he's coaching Miles College in Birmingham at HBCU. And
Hmm.
so he was the first guy that gave me an interview when I called him. He said, sure. And so I'm gonna
That's
have him
awesome.
probably go live. But that's how I started the. But about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I actually started marketing another product through the network marketing industry company called Love Biome, which is
Hmm.
a microbiome. It deals with the microbiome, which is the gut here. Kind of
The gut.
that's the second brain. So the product kind of deals with that, not kind of deals with that.
Hmm.
It's a great product. So I'm marketing that now, but also focusing on the podcast. I think uh, my subscriber base is coming up. Just trying to
Hmm.
get more comments out of them. They liking everything. Um, and this year, I just plan on doing something big. I don't know if I'm gonna get a studio because I like doing it online because I can reach more people. They don't have to come to Atlanta to be in the studio. So I kind of like it like this. But I see a
Hmm.
lot of guys, with studios, and I don't know if that's the way it should go. I don't know. What's your idea on that? You
I mean, the key to that is like just knowing who your audience is and then
mm,
studying what they prefer. Um, there are plenty of podcasts that stay virtual, at least in the beginning.
right,
Um, so in terms of who your target audience is and what they prefer, what they watch the most, what they listen to the most,
right.
go by that. And
But
then who knows? Maybe make the studio a long term goal.
yes, you're right. You're right. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, if I look back, I've been in the industry 20, 25 years. What time flies for real. You don't realize, you know, actually the second company I was with that really expanded my thought about being successful in this industry was a company called ACN. And the
Okay.
people, if you're in Atlanta and you've been in Atlanta um, for a while in the early 90s, we had a group called Tag Team, and it stands for the Atlanta Group.
Okay.
Uh, we used to have business meetings all over the city, Smyrna, Decatur, College Park. We had offices down there where we would do meetings. And you talking about an organization that was built through Tag Team. I still to this day haven't seen a group that big of African Americans. I mean, it was huge. New York, everywhere. We had huge meetings. In Atlanta, it was 900 people at the meeting. Um,
Nice.
yeah. Now I was part of Top Gun, which is uh, Tahisha Noni. We were huge too. We had a huge
Mm-hmm.
base of people. Probably Top Gun and Noni people probably made more money than in Tag Team and ACN. But Tag Team and ACN, we were young, having fun. Um, but it gave me the vision of what could be, in this industry. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So of those, like of each of those, kind of talk about the main lesson you learn from each, because I know like each experience is different. The company culture with each
Right.
is different.
Right.
Like pick a gem that you got
Okay.
from each of the companies you did network marketing
Um,
with.
well, ACN, I think, well, I'll say Tag Team, our group in general.
Mm,
What I learned there was organization, uh, building a group of people who could lead, not just bring
mm,
them into business. You wanted people who
right.
can go put the business on their back and go somewhere else. And there was a system that was put together that you could follow. Um, I'll tell you a story though. Was funny about that, and I've learned something from that too, big time. I remember one of the guys who used to do all the speaking. Like we would have a system of maybe, one guy would do it for a month and then somebody else would do it for a month and then we would just follow that system. But he was out that day. Something was wrong. And it was about 800 people in the meeting. And so they came to me and said, can you do the presentation? Now I had been doing presentations, 200 people. I ain't done 800. I said, no, I don't think I'm prepared for that. So, and it was a young guy behind me, maybe 20. He was probably 5 or 6 years younger than me. He said, I'll
Mm,
do it. And man, he went up there and killed because the way we had the meeting set up was that we participated so strongly in the audience that really anybody could have got up there, because that's what the audience makes the speaker. And so we
mm-hmm,
would, everything he said, we agreed with it. But what bothered me is that I didn't do it. And after that, I said,
mm,
that'll never happen again. It will never happen again because uh, I went back, I thought about it. I could have done it. And since then, it hadn't happened. I'm ready to jump because all you can do is grow by doing it.
mm-hmm.
But I don't know why I did that. But so that was a story in ACN. So then I would say, uh, Tahisha Noni. Let's go with that. The Tag Team. I'm sorry, Top Gun. So we had Tag Team, then we had Top Gun. Top Gun was similar, really, with the same structure because the training that we got from ACN is everybody's using that training in almost every company now across the world in network marketing. So
Wow.
we implemented that training also too with the Top Gun organization. My team was called the Elite Team, which was under the Top Gun umbrella. But what I learned there was that product, in my opinion, will make you more money than services. And
Yeah.
that's my opinion from what I've seen, because
Hmm.
once a person, if they really like the product, they're gonna continue to use it. If they really like it, if it's a good product, they're gonna, so you're gonna get that residual that's gonna come out, for a long time, um, with that. I also learned too that just because the company is huge, that doesn't mean that it can't fall. That doesn't mean that something can't happen to it. So
True.
you ought to be prepared. I used to tell people all the time when I started learning these things is that you should work your business with that company like it's going to be around forever. But when you're talking to your team, you need to talk to them as if it's going out of business tomorrow. Now, let me explain what I mean
Oh.
by that. Let me explain what I mean by that.
Hmm.
Because just in case it goes out of business tomorrow, you've been nice to your team, so they will follow you. A lot of people don't talk to their team like that. Once they get started, they get locked into a company and they start making money and they figure it's going to be forever. And they really not, they ignoring the calls. They're not talking to them like they should. They're not following up with them. And so then when it's time to go, they're like, no, I ain't like you anyway. So I'm not, So you got to, the business is Tony Fleming Incorporated. Like I tell anybody, your business would be Melissa Thomas Incorporated. So your business can never go out of business, but the products and things that you marketing could. But long as you're
Right.
living, you still you. You got to
Yep.
operate that way. And
Yep.
those are some of the things I learned.
Awesome. So talk a little bit more now about, obviously you got the Mental Toughness podcast. It's been
Hmm.
on for a year. Shout out to a year. Consistency
Right.
is awesome. First, let our audience know when your shows air.
Well, what I
Let them know
do
that first.
is once I do an interview, I will lately for well since I started, what I'll do is if it's an hour long, I'll chop it up into maybe 8 parts, and then what I'll do is each night we'll post one until all 8 are shown, and then we'll put the full show out. And the reason we do that kind of is that a lot of people don't really have time. They can click on a little 8-10 minute video, but if
Hmm.
it's an hour, they might not want to watch it. They might hold on to it. Now we put some out that's like the full thing also before we did the clips, but it's kind of like, to me, I just think that's pretty cool the way we put it out. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I got about 15 people I call my VIPs that when the clip come out, the clip is sent to them. So it's text to them, and
Nice.
so now they get this.
Yeah.
These are only my VIPs though. These are the ones these are the ones that are always talking to me about the show. They like the show. It's just they comment. So they do things like that and tell them. They also give me suggestions on what I
That's
always love to
good.
take suggestions on. On what I can do, but you know, um, I would say too, I'm proud of just being consistent. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
always something coming out. So
Right.
always something coming out. I think last week I put one out, the full one, but
Hmm.
I also had reels coming out behind it so that people will
Hmm.
know. But if you go to the site, you will see. I mean, you go to the podcast. It's Elite Psyche 100, and the reason I added the 100 was because somebody had Elite Psyche. I'm like, who has Elite Psyche? I mean, I'm
Ah, I
like,
was gonna ask about
yeah,
that.
yeah. And people start going to Elite Psyche. No, nothing there. It's like somebody just
Hmm.
grabbed it. Like, who's gonna even? When I thought of that name, I was like, I don't think nobody's gonna have this. So I'm saying, and when we say Elite Psyche, what that means is um, that's a person who has this, powerful soul, powerful
Hmm.
mind, powerful
Hmm.
spirit. They have a elite psyche, because
Right.
the psyche is strong. So that's why, and I
Yeah.
think I feel like a lot of that comes from the mental toughness part. So that's why we do
Right.
that. But you know, um, the goal is to grow it. The goal is to have more guests on. Now, I haven't really done a lot of just me speaking. I heard you say that you do that, but
Hmm.
what I have started though and I'm starting putting these out next week. Is I ain't got a name for it yet. But I guess it's called book reviews. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
showing a book, and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
read a little bit from the book, and I'll talk to people about what I have. It's about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already recorded maybe 10 of them already with different books, and
That's
so I'm gonna
good.
be doing book reviews. Uh, they're gonna be coming out like crazy because I think I read about 400 books, so I got them all. I can, if I go through every one of them, that's a lot of videos that I can put out. So it was just, I was sitting here thinking, and I really like Riverside to be able to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Seed planted.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. That's good. And shout out to the book review idea. I think that's gonna grow legs
Hmm.
because we're in an era now where
They're trying to keep it
but
from you.
for yeah, and I mean, for one, books aren't going anywhere.
Yeah,
But two, because of the versatility of book content now, like even if a person doesn't buy the physical thing, they'll get the audio book, they'll
yeah.
get the Kindle version
Right,
or
right,
whatever other ebook they want.
right.
And really that's the most important thing in terms of spreading of ideas. You know what I mean? The
You know,
continual spreading of ideas.
I used to be so, I don't know, passionate about people actually reading the book. I'm not now.
Hmm.
I think, like you said, as long as they get the information, if they listen to the audio, they get it from their whatever they listen, wherever they getting it from, just get the information. I was used to be
Right.
like, man, you got to read it. Well, some people just not going to read. You know what I'm saying? So if they can get the audio and they listen to it, that's a beautiful thing. Because I mean, here's a question I always ask people: where else are you going
Hmm.
to get your knowledge from? You can't get it from the news. Nobody's giving you any
No,
knowledge on the news. You
no.
know, radio's
It's
not giving you
slanted.
anything. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I was to say about books is that anytime I'm having challenges, anytime I'm frustrated about something, or even thinking about quitting whatever I'm doing, my mentor I used to call, and he would tell me on the phone, "Go get this book,
Mm.
read this book." No, go get it because I already had it. He said, "Go read page 87." So I go read page 87.
Wow.
It was like a baby pacifier in my mouth. It would shut me up. You know what I'm saying? I would read that. Now I read, I'd be like, oh man, this is nothing I'm going through because the books, they go through in detail the process that they've been through and the
Hmm.
challenges they had. So I'm thinking my challenges are so bad, but the books would quiet me down. So each day I would be reading. And I realized too, my mentor didn't know what was on that page. He just knew that if I opened that book and started reading,
Oh,
yeah, it's like a pacifier for me. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I like
Close
that
this
though.
page
He
here.
got you in the book. That was
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, for me, that changed my life was the book reading. You know what I'm saying? When he told me about that, and I kind of, and then I started, like separating from some of the group I was with as I started reading more because I knew they wouldn't
Talk
coming.
about that.
Yeah, I knew they wouldn't coming. I used to tell, I remember, I remember we were sitting at this little restaurant that we would go
Hmm.
to after, after work and hang out. And I used to be the leader of the pack. But when I started reading, I would sit there and talk to them about, what's your goals? What's your dreams? And they looking at me like, man, you killing my high here. You need to shut up with that.
Yep.
Because my goal
Yep.
and dream right now is that female over at the bar. That's my goal and dream. I'm like,
That part.
yes. So I wind up cutting away. It was a good thing though, because they didn't really want to be a part of that. And I didn't want to be a part of this
Hmm.
anymore. I was a part of that for a long time. But as I started reading and I started thinking, I'm like, man, some of these books been out for 20 years. I never even heard of them. And people are using that information against me. They
Oh,
taking it. I'm like, I got to get these books, man, and start reading because they've been reading them. And so it's like a ball player that has more information than you. They've been practicing more. They got more knowledge than you. So when you go
that.
head up with them, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So, um, books became my friends. You know, I got
Hmm.
tons of them sitting right here on my desk. Now, this is the Steve Siebel book I was talking about. But
Okay.
these all became my friends. These was like my rich people I didn't know. You know how people say,
Hmm.
"Well, I don't have that environment." Yeah, you can grab a book and
Get the
get that
book.
environment. Yeah,
Yep.
everything you need to know is right here. You know,
Yep.
you don't have to, go find this rich person that you said you didn't know. Right? It's go get the books.
Yeah. And I
And
mean,
most of the people that you follow, they have a book.
that part.
Hmm.
Plus, I mean, reading books by the wealthy is the cheat code because yes, the goal is to meet them and to
Right.
get in their space. But when you get in their space, having read their book is your entry
Uh,
into their space because you'll be speaking their language.
yep.
Once they know that you've actually read their book, that flatters them. Because some people will buy the book just to support them, right?
Right.
Like anybody we know that releases a book, we buy it to support them, right? But it's a different thing when you buy the book and you read it and you can speak it back to the author. The
Let me tell
author
you.
always appreciates that.
Let me tell you. One of my favorite guests that I had on the podcast, and he's probably the most well known. I put it that way. I
Hmm.
had read his book, and I can't. I usually have it on my desk right here. God. I read his book, and then my partner told me he knew him. So I'm like, you really? And so, um, Kwame Kilpatrick.
Wow.
Yes, he when he got out, Trump gave him
Hmm.
that
Pardon?
wasn't a pardon. It was something just like a pardon, though. Meaning he had to pay
Okay.
back, but he's
I
out.
think it's commutation. Is
A
it
commutation. That's
commutation?
it. Commutation.
Yeah.
There you go. And so my partner went to FAMU with him, and so
Okay.
he said, "I'm gonna call him and see." So he called him. He said, "I got a guy that just started a podcast. I probably was 6 months in, and could you, he kind of had a gatekeeper in between, and she didn't want him to do it, So she was, but my partner was like, "This is my dude, so I'm gonna call him again. I'm gonna call him again." And so finally, he said, "Okay, I'll do it, man." That was one of the best interviews because we went through the book. A lot of people hadn't read his book, and so all you know is
I.
about what the media said about it.
Right.
All the stuff, and he admit to a lot of things that was ego driven, but also he got treated. I mean, like a dog. How you give Mayor 28 years? 28 years they gave him for something that the governor of Virginia did, and he got 2 months, something
That
like that.
part.
I forgot. Yeah, he got 28 years. So if it wasn't for Trump, given that computation after 7 years, he would have been in there. But
Hmm.
he talks in the book. See, I had read his book, and his book was like, see, nobody comes back and say this is what really happened. Once they put it out, that's it. And
Hmm.
once you flood the mind with that stuff, like you said, the media, once they put that slanted stuff out there, like he said, yeah, I did this, I did that, but all the other stuff, nah. So, um, like you said, reading a book and then getting a chance to meet somebody, like that. Like I've read a couple of uh, Doc we talked about. I'm getting younger and younger. Doc, the teachers over at Clark.
Dennis
Kimbrough.
Kimbrough. Dennis
Yeah,
Kimbrough.
Kimbrough. Yeah, Dr. Kimbrough. Um, great guy. Great
Hmm.
guy. I've
Hmm.
been on the stage speaking with him before. I actually had him come to my events. So I'm putting it out here for everybody here. I want Dr. Kimbrough to do the forward of my book. So his picture's
Y'all
already
heard
on my
that.
it's already on my vision board. It's already out there. So I'm gonna
Yep.
go over there to Clark, Dr. Kimbrough. That's what we need to
All
do.
right.
Yeah.
If you're watching and you know him,
Yeah,
DM
let him know.
me.
Yeah, there you go.
And be sure to check out the merch shop. If you are curious about the shirt, you want one for yourself, you can go to gettingthewingear.com. That way you see this shirt, you'll see a bunch of other accessories as well. We've got hoodies, we've got sweats, we've got all the gifts that you could possibly want to buy for yourself and for your folks to get the message out about being as productive as possible, and staying true to yourself. Because the mission of this show is to turn procrastinators into producers. That's why I always task you guys to hashtag get on that. Make sure you're on top of your luxury item. And that way you can rock the gear to remind the world that you are all about that luxury item. You are all about getting things done, getting the goals instead of simply setting them.